Okay. All right. Well, I know Kathy said she'll be back here in a few minutes. Erin is, I mean, not Erin, Jen will be joining us in a little bit. She was waiting for family to get home. So thanks everybody for joining. For Kathy and me, it's not too late, and maybe not for Sarah either. It's kind of afternoon, but I know the rest of you, it's getting late back east. So we'll try to be efficient with tonight's refresher course, but make sure that we answer everything that you need to know. And to date, just so we can kind of bring you all up to speed. Hi again, Kathy. What is happening and who's going where and all those good things. I think Sarah's leaving here soon. What's your date? What's your departure date, Sarah?
10 days from now, 27th.
I just know I have a dinner date
on the return, on the return time. I'm gonna have breakfast with other friends in Anchorage on the going and on the coming. I'll have
fine. I won't have breakfast. I'll have dinner. Okay. So yeah, so Sarah's got a lot going on in her world, and she can probably pipe in along the way here and tell us what is working for her, what isn't working for her, or things that she wished she had done earlier or not, etc. Then next is Erin, who's leaving. Actually, I saw conversations about tickets today. So sometime in April, when was it? Like late April?
Yeah, April 23rd, I think the tickets are for, if everything else works out.
I think they're buying tickets whether it works out or not, Erin, is the way I yes.
So, you know, but it's just been incredible. And it's like, I want to get excited about it. And then I'm cautious, you know, like it's just whatever goes.
So Kathy and Sarah may not know why.
Is it all Ukraine related?
No, actually it's helicopter related. So, you know, we're studying glacial dynamics, you know, and so every day we have to leave town, we have to get onto a helicopter, and the helicopter has to be big enough to fit a 6-person crew plus all of the gear. And they are having some pretty, they're having some issues trying to track down a helicopter. And I'd imagine that if they don't, that is sort of a stop, you know? So I want to like be really excited, and it was exciting to see those tickets, you know, but at the same time, I'm like, meh, you know, like, so just cautious is all. It's cautious.
I would be too.
Yeah.
Totally. Yes, actually, I think Sarah's been through some similar things up to planning.
And Kathy too.
Right. And the next one though going out is Jen, who's not here, but she is scheduled to go. I forgot what the dates were for that. That was like June.
Beginning of June is what we have.
June, yeah, sometime in June. So she hasn't even done her pre-field call yet or anything, but her project has changed in that she's coming to Alaska, not to Canada. Although Canada just opened up. So I don't know, like they're opening up this week. So that may help you, Kathy, in some ways for your expedition. So Kathy, like Jen, was scheduled to go to Northern Canada, and her researcher, at least to date, has decided not to deploy this year, but try to do something in 2023. But maybe the community, and most that's a community thing, not so much a researcher or Canada or anything. It's really about the community not feeling comfortable still with COVID situation. So last I heard, which was actually just last week, that was the plan, was to delay until 2023, of which we still have to talk to Kathy about if that's going to work or not. So as you can see, there's lots of things happening. It's a moving target every day. And the other things that you should know about is Eric. He was scheduled. Now his research team is going out to the field. They're a ship-based expedition. Eric, for his own personal reasons, is not going to go, but he's willing to do outreach for the team. That being said, there are some other situations that seem to be developing. There's another researcher in Alaska that's coming to Alaska that's looking for an educator, and they are actually doing research in Eric's backyard, like literally. And so he may end up helping them out, and because it's just easier, it's in his backyard and things like that. Remains to be seen how that develops. And there may be a different teacher that researcher team that's on the ship has been in contact, another Alaska teacher that may go out to sea with them. So there's always something on the, and then for Antarctica, well, that's always changing also. Currently, we are anticipating Bill heading to the field, Cassie heading to the field. Elaine is an iffy, maybe, if not this year, maybe in 2023. And Tammy's expedition is not going to the field. So we're working to find some replacement opportunity for her. And I think that's it in your cohort. And then of course, Liza and John got to go. Crazy.
I thought Jen and Erin were on the same team. Isn't that right, Erin? Isn't she your colleague?
Which
Oh,
one?
Jen?
Isn't your colleague?
She will always be one of my colleagues, but
Yeah, weren't you on the same
schools?
Oh, okay. I thought the whole time you were going to go on the same expedition. You just were at the same. Okay, got it.
Right.
Yeah, and she moved last summer, I think.
Yeah, I knew that detail.
Was it last summer or the summer before? The years
Oh,
have not
yes.
run together for
I
me.
think it was a year.
Years have
over
run
here.
together. I don't know what year this is.
It doesn't
You
matter.
are correct. She's
We're here.
actually she moved over. Yeah, it was right after COVID that she moved, right in the middle of that whole thing. Yeah, you're right, Erin. It is crazy. So, yeah, Jen's researcher has stayed the same. It's just the location has changed. Her researcher has some funding for Alaska, and instead of trying to plan with something that was almost impossible and was changing, she just decided to do Alaska. So the one thing, but the reason why I bring some of this up is one, to keep you in touch with your cohort. But one of the things that I want to talk to you tonight when we kind of get to education, outreach planning, which was one of the things that everybody said they wanted to hear about, is really you, all of you will now be affiliated with some community, like your research is part of a community. And so that kind of change. It's not like being at Toolik Field Station or on a ship or something like that. So that's one of the things I also wanted to touch base with you, is a little bit about working with communities and what to expect or not expect, and what your ideas or what your teams might be doing in those communities. So, yeah, so for tonight's format, Judy sent out an agenda. It had a lot of links. I've opened up most of them on my desktop. My preference is not to try to share because it can be distracting, and if you're like me, you might have a small screen to look at. If you want me to share something, just say, yeah, please share, and I will. Otherwise, I'll try to post the link or the place I'm going to in the chat, and you can open it up on your own. It's free form. You just shout out, interrupt, give us advice, ask questions, do whatever. Keep your mics open and just ask away. This is your training and refresher. So we're just going off of what what you said or how you ranked things. And there may be, some of the topics are kind of broad, and there may be something you were really thinking when you checked that and you said, no, I don't understand that. You may have a better question. Otherwise, my goal is just to kind of go over, review some of these things, and then dive into really whatever your needs or questions, if there's the specifics and how to. And I did a slight reordering, but I think you'll follow along. I moved technology from the field because that's more probably more specific than the education outreach stuff. I kind of put that near the end. So to start off, is that okay? Approach work for everybody? Okay. So program requirements and overview and checklist. I think the big thing with that, and I am, this is going to be challenging for Jenna, not sharing my thing, but basically, I think Judy sent it in that email, and there are a lot of things you did initially through the orientation that we had 2 years ago. And I've been I saw like, Sarah, you're doing a good job of tracking things. I think basically through the requirements and checklist is just to go read it and see if you're on target or if you have questions, and just read your part that says educators. Don't worry about the researchers column.
Would it be helpful if I shared my screen just as a reminder? Because I've got that open.
I got mine. I'll share mine. It's okay.
I was going to say, I can do it too.
I mean, I just got it right here, like what it looks like on our side.
Yep, I got it on your side.
Okay.
I'll share because I want to jump around. So I've logged in as John, so it looks like your screen and not an admin screen. So anytime you log in, this should look familiar. Does this look familiar to Erin and Kathy? I know Sarah's been in there. Okay, good. All right, so anytime you have a requirement or you go through the requirements checklist, you're going to click on My Requirements, and you should get a little tab, a bunch of tabs. Oops.
So you have to go to the button that says Edit, and then they all show up.
Yes, I'm going to not go there quite yet.
Oh.
So I had to get you guys out of my view. So when you click on My Requirements, as you fulfill requirements, they show up on this page. So I picked John because he's done a lot of requirements. He's got before orientation, at orientation, immediately, after expedition, and then after expedition, and during the expedition. So anyway, this is what yours will start to look like this after you check things off. In order to check off requirements, as Sarah said, you got to click on Edit Requirements. So I'm going to do that. And these follow along with the hard copy or the PDFs that Judy shared with you earlier or through email. And I got to close this little window over here. It's going to drive me nuts. Closing the chat. And again, you're just going to check off things. And if it's an upload, if it requires uploading, you actually got to switch tabs and go to the Uploads tab and upload that file that goes along with that requirement and browse for it and look for it. So here we can see that John did vision and goals. He didn't do any of the other things yet. He did his reflection essay, and we uploaded the logistics call, and he did his STEM report. So that's the upload section, and that's how you also track your requirements so that they show up on your portfolio. There are things here in the list, and I apologize that it's super messy. There are things here where it says ignore or not applicable or do this, you know, we have a lot of things because these go back many generations of cohorts and things changed, and we didn't want to lose their work. And so we had to just kind of add on. So if you aren't really sure about a requirement in particular or what to upload, Judy and Janet will help you out. Okay, so where I wanted to go is right. I gotta switch. I gotta stop sharing and go to here. So this is a PDF. It's in the educator's manual. I'm not, I've pulled it up in Adobe for you, but basically, I think this, Judy, you sent this out in your email. Was this part of your email for tonight?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, it was.
Yeah. And so basically, you would go through this again and just go into the requirements section of your portfolio and go through and check off things and upload things. So it's both in written form and it's also there, is mostly what I wanted to say. And And some things may not apply currently. And I think if you get to anything in here and you're like, I don't know what this means, or I don't see where this is, again, just let us know, and we'll clarify it. For instance, there was, I'm going to stop screen sharing. There was a researcher communications plan, and I'm sure Sarah tried to find it in the requirements list. It's not listed because it just got missed. But it is a document that we want you to upload. So, which is where I assume Sarah found it, is when she was going through the requirements list. She was like, what's this document? And she was like, oh, and she sent a note to us all, and we found places for it to be uploaded and checked. So there's always going to be something like we'll miss those kinds of things. So, and really the requirements and the checklist are just a way of tracking what the expectations are. So any questions about that aspect, or want anything more in depth?
In the future, just turn them into Google Drive docs, and then everybody can work on them together with the research. Because I put all of mine on Google Drive, and then we worked together with the researchers, and then I downloaded them, and then I put them on. It was like an extra step.
You mean for you to work with your teams?
Yeah. That's just a strategy. So that's a strategy. Maybe that's just something to share with Erin and friends and Kathy.
Yeah, and the reason why we can't do that is because Ronnie and Zeb would have a cow. No, Google Docs is not a safe way of sharing documentation, and for the long run and for archiving. So that's why we don't use it. But it is a good strategy for sharing with others in your team. So, and the reason why Sarah's pointing it out is you may not remember that most of those documents are ways, or require maybe a researcher, your team, to look at and to understand what you're doing and their discussions. And related to that, all of those documents and templates and things that we have, they're just that. This is like you giving a worksheet to your students or something. That they're just a template. If that form doesn't work for you, and those questions don't meet your needs, you can create whatever. If you're, we had a teacher in the past that is very artistic and likes to doodle, and that's how she represents, her mind and her workflow. And she uploaded images or things that are like that. So if the documents aren't working for you, just do what works for you. In the end, it's mostly, we've taken all of the pieces of an education outreach plan and kind of split them up into little sections, one for manageability, but also so that you can have conversations with your researcher and think more clearly about some of them. So anyway, you can do whatever. If it works, images, if you want to do a song and dance and that's how you want to communicate it, whatever, but just upload it. We might have to ask Zeb or Ronnie to allow a media format like that, but they do, researchers in the past, sometimes they've used what they see on a profile in their own reporting. Like they'll reference your profile in their reports to NSF or to whoever's funding them, to say this is how we did education outreach. So that's one way that those profiles get used. So that's why, having the documentation and taking the time to upload it is important. And then the other place that's gotten used is in our reporting to NSF. We say, here's the complete profiles. It shows that everybody did fulfill the requirements and things like that. So that's just one way. Oh, and some people have used them for new jobs. They're like, this is what I do in education outreach, and becomes part of their resume, and they reference their profile that way. Okay, so one of the requirements is kind of stepping back a little bit, is to fulfill these different aspects of the education outreach plan, which I just kind of mentioned. So the education outreach plan, I'm just going to share again real quick. This one, I'll get there. Again, this should be one of this is like a main button. It doesn't look like this in your world. This is a printed version, but of the education outreach plan. The education outreach plan manual, or is in the educator's manual, and has each of these sections broken out, but I'm just showing you a PDF version of it. Again, it's an organization tool, and in our case, it has these 5 parts that we've kind of fleshed out: the professional goal alignment, the networking strategy, the education outreach strategy, the STEM experience report, and final products, which are lessons. And this PDF kind of has, I'm not going to go through all of it, but there are parts, most of these parts are due before you should have a drafted form or version uploaded into your online profile before you leave for the field. And again, these are the things I think Sarah was saying she was sharing back and forth with her research team. Some things require the research team and some don't. Again, if the template's not working for you, just flesh it out, bullets in whatever way works for you. Like I said, that one teacher liked art, so she did art. Networking strategy is about how I don't know if you remember the circles of impact that we did with Sarah. Our first orientation was a bunch of about basically how you were going to take your experience and who you're going to reach. What is your plan to reach out to different audiences and who is in your circle? If you did that in the first orientation, you should look at it and see if it still makes sense to you. If it doesn't, this is a good time to upload or review it and maybe upload a new version.
So just so you know, those 2 documents, there's 2 documents there, and unless you like figure out how to put them together, there's only one place to do uploads. So I have the circle thing, but I didn't know where to put it. So that's just
okay.
That's a parking lot project for later.
Okay. Yeah, and I think the idea was that the networking template or that PDF is what we want. You don't need to share your circles of impact with us. It's for you.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
It was rather artsy. No, just kidding.
Well,
I'm teasing.
Well, and you
Okay.
can if you want to combine
It's
the 2
okay. No,
PDFs
it's
together. Yeah.
I just want
Well, because my circles of impact was not was handwritten, right? So then you're gonna have to take a picture and
Oh,
so
yeah.
it's
I did
yeah.
that. I scanned it and I was like, where do I put it? And there was nowhere to put it. And I was like, whatever, I'll put it back in the notebook.
Exactly. So and then the next piece is basically your plans on how you want to integrate this. Again, the circles of impact comes into this as well. How you want to integrate this into whoever your primary audience is, and then outreach strategy. Templates for both of these questions that are in these templates that you might want to address. And again, you don't have to address all of these. Maybe these make sense to you, maybe they don't. It's really just brainstorming activity. How do you think you're going to use this? The outreach one is kind of a good one to discuss with your researchers in particular, because especially before you go in the field with them, they may have ideas of what they are thinking you should do for outreach, and your ideas may be completely different, or maybe they're the same, but you need to think a little bit and have these conversations with them. I know, like in Kathy's case, her researcher has a lot of ideas. He has a lot of ideas, and it's great, but are they really going to be something that you can do? The whole, there's this balance of like, they may, for instance, in Kathy's instance, they have her researcher has several workshops that he wants to do. That's great. It's a good way to outreach. It's a good way to connect. But is Kathy responsible for going to all of those workshops? What's her role in those workshops? Is she advertising? Is she facilitating? Is she actually doing the training? You have to be clear about what your expectations are in that. Or is he just saying, I have these opportunities and you pick which ones you want to go to? I mean, there's a lot going on there. Same with Sarah. I know you spent a lot of time over the last 2 years helping do outreach for her team. And again, you need to figure out what works for you, what's manageable. And if it gets too crazy, you have to let us and them know that that's, you know, something you can or cannot do, or we need to discuss further. So outreach is one of the biggest things that researchers want. Researcher teams are expecting you to do what, especially while you're, before you go out in the field and while you're in the field, and even when you come back. So make sure you have conversations about outreach and what it looks like, and what the expectations are. So this will help you hopefully have those conversations. The STEM experience, and then I am going to come back to outreach and share what Sarah did with outreach as well here in a moment. But STEM experience reports, when you come back, this report is basically a very, it doesn't have to be dry, it can be very nice, but it's a report that talks about why these experiences benefit you, and the education community and the research community, and they go to NSF. And I can't see chat, so go ahead and tell me something if you need to. You see a number. And yeah, let's see, I'm skipping that. Final products. We'll talk a little bit about that for this group here, but we'll really dive into it when you come back. But before you go on your expedition, you should be thinking about what it is going to be your kind of capstone or final project, or products. Usually for teachers in the classroom, it's lesson plans, and we have a whole template of what that looks like, you know, or maybe it's a, for informal ed, maybe it's a video or something that goes as part of an exhibit, for instance, or so we need to talk about what that, you need to think about what that's going to look like before you go, obviously, because if for some reason you need to have, if your lesson plan or your product requires video of a certain science tool or a certain process or interviews of people, you need to know that before you go out into the field so that you can manage and make sure that you get that content while you're out in the field and don't come back. Or if you need certain resources, you need to think about that beforehand as well. And again, this is kind of expectations, what works for you, what is the research team thinking? To be fair, most research teams are not thinking about final products, they're thinking about outreach stuff. However, some lessons, especially if you have researchers that are faculty at universities, some lessons plans that you create, once they realize you're writing lessons and the quality of lessons, they're like, oh, I can use that lesson in my class that I teach to X students as well. So then you might have conversations about what the lessons look like and how they might integrate them at teaching undergrad level or something in their situation as well. And we'll prime you for all of these things when you come back from your expedition, but you do need to think about them before. And there's a template and everything that goes with lessons. I'm gonna stop sharing.
Janet, do any folks submit lessons to CERC, the Science Education Research, or whatever CERC stands for, out of Carleton College? It's like it's like Earth Science Central.
They don't submit them because if you the lesson template is designed with places like CERC in mind, but they're submitted to us. And if you want to, you know, cross-reference it or add it to somewhere else in the world that makes sense for you, you're more than welcome to. But no, they're just added to our resource database and can be cross-referenced. So, and it would depend on the science discipline and also, you know, what the content is, because not everybody's earth science either. So I know people have cross-referenced them in like National Marine Educators world as well. So it really just depends on the nature of the lesson. But we tried to take in, there's some online, well, it doesn't exist anymore, but there were some clearinghouses and other places that had lesson plans in the past. And we try to incorporate most of those fields and things so it would be easy for people to use or cross-reference in other platforms. Okay, so, I wanted to share, so like I mentioned, well, before I get into outreach resources, anything about requirements and the components of education outreach plan. I know it really is an overview. I'm not gonna go into. Or Sarah, anything since you've been working in it recently, other, like you mentioned, circles of impact, any other pieces that you're like, oh, this caught me off guard, or I had no idea what you were talking about, or why I was doing this?
Yeah, I would say I got it done. It's not like, it's like I got it done and I had conversations with my researchers, but I didn't think this had to be like an A+ paper. I don't have the capacity to like, I'm like, it probably doesn't have to be that good. And so it's probably just fine.
Yes, that's a good point, actually. I'm going to reiterate the use of bullets draft. That's what this is. It's really just, just not a full-fledged research paper or anything. We don't want any of that. This is just your brainstorming and ways to start having conversations with your research team again, about what they're thinking, what they're not thinking. And some of this they probably haven't even thought
And a lot
about.
of it felt extremely kind of redundant or kind of moot point at this point for me, because it's been 2 years of these relationship building relationships with these people. And so,
yep,
that's just some feedback, but so be it. That's just the world we're living in.
And I would agree that, these were designed pre whatever things we've all experienced in the last 2 years. So, definitely take that into light, that some of these conversations you might have already had. And I would hope you've already had, again, because you're all leaving it, you're leaving soonish. And so, these conversations.
Well, I'm kind of glad to have these, because we've had these conversations for 2 years, but like my researcher and I have ideas that are like here and here. And so I kept getting emails that was like, how's that requirements list going? I was like, it's not at the moment, and so I really kind of, I appreciate this tonight, because and not only that, but just like thinking about the last 2 years and all of the work that has been done that I didn't think had anything to do with it, but it does. And so it'll be nice to just like have it in one spot and kind of get my researcher and I just our bullets all in one spot, because we've got like a lot of bullets everywhere. So
right.
Okay.
Yeah. And that's good. So again, if it works out that you just need to have one Google Doc that you share with the researcher and you go back and forth, and maybe it has these headings or it has teaser lines from this, make it whatever works for you. And I guess just let Judy and I know if you're stumbling or you still aren't sure where to go, or conversations keep going in circles with your researchers. I know some of them have, so it will be good. And you may just have to also have just a Zoom call with your researcher and just go over and say, look, I don't understand what you want, and I'm over here, or this is my time frame.
We had 4 people co-writing the communication one today on Google Drive and a Zoom call. It was pretty hilarious.
Yeah. And your instance, you have a lot of hands. There's a lot of people, and hopefully, Erin, it's just for you and Sarah, and same Kathy, you and Martin. It's not though. It doesn't have to be. When we say team, it really should be just that one point person. But Sarah's team is very hands-on, and
fun
many
and
hands,
awesome.
many hands.
It's
great.
It's good.
It's good.
Yeah.
So
they decided they were going to invite their grandmas to the Polar Connect. I was like, that's perfect. Invite your grandma to the Polar Connect.
Exactly. Okay, so speaking of communication plans and outreach, there are resources available to you. I don't know if any of you have checked out the ECW kit, the Extreme Cold Weather Kit. Has anybody done that yet?
I made a reservation for May.
Sarah's got a reservation in for me.
Because I'm going to do library programs then.
Yeah, and so Erin, maybe before you go, it might be fun for you to get the kit and check it out.
I would
so
love
the
to have that kit immediately or as soon as possible.
Judy will
possible.
post the form or the link and
Okay.
requesting in the
Thank
How
you,
is
chat while we're
Judy.
done.
different than the gear we just got from Fairbanks?
Yeah,
Is it
and that's a
different?
good, that's a good point. It is different. But since you do have your gear, Sarah, I mean, there's no sense. I mean, so the ECW kit we have 4 of them, and they have 2 of them have Arctic gear along with Antarctica gear, and the other 2 are just Antarctic gear. So, you know, the big coats, goggles, they call them the big red in Antarctica. It's that big red coat, goggles, you know, the balaclava, the boots, the bunny boots, all that kind of stuff, gloves. And it comes in a orange bag that gets shipped to you. I don't know what the Arctic gear is. It rain gear, mosquito head net.
Yeah.
And
You might
The
maybe
be able
kids
to
would
cancel.
absolutely love that. They will love that. Like dragging in those orange bags and being like, God, what do we got here? They will love that.
And you could throw in your stuff and, you know, on top of it if you need to. But I mean, the whole idea is just what you said, Erin. It's for kids to
Oh my
just
God,
try
they'll love
on
that.
stuff and put on goggles and take their picture with it. You know, I mean, they do. So, yeah, so those, I think you can use them before your expedition if it helps, you know, get people fired up. And it doesn't have to be kids, it can be adults at some presentation or whatnot. If it gets people fired up about your upcoming expedition, it can use that way. Also, when you come back, obviously, in other follow-up activities, you're welcome to check out the gear. And we ship it back and forth. So that's what the ECW kit is. There is a place on the website for that to help you do your outreach. We do have
I gave the link in the chat for the checkout form. Anyways.
Yeah. And Judy coordinates it, and because there are 4 kits, and sometimes we have a teacher, you know, somebody that's already got a kit, send it to another person kind of thing in the lower 48. So expedition flyer, I would be hesitant to use that now because it's pretty out of date. Yes, but probably more useful is, and Sarah can probably share one, I'm sure, is creating your own little postcard or something about your expedition. I know Sarah's done a lot of that.
Yeah, I'm happy to share my screen if you want, for just to show you how I've done this. Let me pull it, get to the right place. So I think in future PolarTREC programs, I've emailed this to Judy, or to Janet, but just as to everybody to know this, if there was is it Canva? I don't know what the online, I think it's Canva or Adobe Creative Cloud account for each person to use. I think it just would be, just raises the professionalism of all of this, because then you can create things that look like this. And so like I've created, and I was just making stuff we're going to be live on the radio, on Top of the World Radio. And so it's like, I was making this to post on social media, but I think you can kind of just see, I made all these images because our world is all about images. It's like, you can only have so many words. Anything you share with anybody, if you don't have an image, it's kind of pointless. And what's cool is that if you have accounts, you have access to some free images, as well as my team gave me some images. But like, this one's worth looking at. It's I just made this so it could get posted the day before our Polar Connect. And you can see, you know, I got my team to send me some images. If you looked, you wouldn't even know that I might be in that picture. You don't know. But I'm not in that picture. But anyway, got some photos, and then all the logos and all the stuff that people care about is all there. So
if you have an Adobe, so are you saying if you have an Adobe account, I can like access all of this?
If you have an Adobe account, you should be able to access Adobe Creative Cloud for free. Yep. And then I created a library and for the Arctic, so that if I want to make, why does it not show? But anyway, it's got all these. somewhere. I put like all these different logos and things all in one thing. Oh, there they are, assets. And so like it's all here. So like whenever I
Oh,
want to
sweet.
make the next thing,
Here's
like
more
I just
doors.
go grab it. I don't have to go down and find it again and again and again. And so yeah, and so then so I use this all the time. I find it much easier than using Adobe. I mean, I have lots of Adobe products, but and then I made like this postcard of sorts. Like this was the really general one. It just says what it says, International Arctic Buoy Program. But then recently I made one that says, follow us, like here's the thing, like we're doing this, we're going on these days. Again, you can't even send out an email without an image in it. People don't read stuff. So that's what I've been making. And like the library programs that I'm going to do, I made them library images, and I've made sure to give them to them with all the logos on it, because I didn't want them to screw it up and leave them out. So yeah, and then I use the PolarTREC, what do you call them? PowerPoint slide backgrounds. That's the base of these things, as an image file, because it just looks professional, right? And it makes it all look the same, except for when I went crazy with the radio one today, because I was like, we got to have something different.
Yeah.
So,
And those were, if you still have your jump drives, that those images and the
Yeah.
logos and everything are on the jump drives in the background.
another
templates.
strategy I did is well, 2 years ago, I bought an external hard drive that was just for this, because I was like, we're going to have tons of photos and videos, and how in the world I'm going to handle all of that. And so I just have an external hard drive that I will take with me on my expedition, but I have everything on that, because these PolarTREC computers don't have the capacity, I don't think, to hold all this stuff. And it's really hard to work on my computer and the PolarTREC computer. And so I just have an external hard drive that I also have backed up to another hard drive, so that it's like redundant. I share all this because it might be helpful, Erin.
Well, yeah, and Aaron's got a lot of, I mean, everybody always has lots of images. There's usually movies, and if you're going to do drone stuff as well, I think,
Yeah, I've been working, and with photography, I constantly work with, I have numerous external hard drives, so that's the best way. Keep it all organized.
Yeah. And then the other thing that probably Janet was about to share was, I think it's easier to share this from the back end, is this way of communicating with people. Again, I just feel like if you give it to them, they mess it up, because they don't know they just don't know. They don't know what the language actually is. So I have this whole folder called Outreach Toolkit Assets. And I have so I have the images over here, and images have their own folder, but I start with I'm going to share this with you. You can have it. Is a Google Doc that's like a one-stop shop, but I have the sharing mechanism set up so that nobody can mess it up. So it's like they can only view it. Nobody can. And this is what I've been sending to the paper, to my university that now wants to do it, like I'm going to be the spotlight of their alumni magazine. I'm just kind of like, whoa, I hope they don't ask me for alumni money. But anyway, and so it's all one stop, and then it's all hot linked to all these things. And like, there's the official press release, and then there's the PolarTREC language, it's all there. And then they have the language. All they have to do is copy and paste this into some email, whatever they're telling, whoever they are telling somebody something. And this one's before travel, and then I'll have another ones for afterwards. Maybe not, I don't know. I even wrote the tweets, I wrote the Instagram.
And will you send that? That
yeah, I'm
template?
going to. And then I put all these graphics in here. I mean, they're not all here, but if you go to the folder, you can go to the folder and you can see all the graphics, and then you can download whatever you need, square or rectangles. And I learned all of this from Climate Generation in Minneapolis. They gave this all to me. And then there's the email,
Perfect. That's perfect.
So anyway, I will share that link right now. And then what I recommend that you do is you make a copy of it.
Okay.
And then, save it, make a copy to your Google Drive.
Okay.
Yeah, and that I was going to say too, what's nice about that particular piece is that can go smack into your outreach plan, you know. So if you're having a discussion with your outreach, you know, with your researchers, you could do some of that before you send it to them and say, like, here's what I'm thinking, and here's how, because some of them will be particular about images that you use. They'll want certain logos. As Sarah said, we have on things that are going to be published, there is some PolarTREC NSF language as well that needs to be said. And then the other thing is, I don't know so much of Sarah's group, but I know some of the researchers, like Erin, your researcher, they have at Woods, you know, they have their own websites. And so they may want to access and put some things on their websites in certain ways. So yeah, it's a great template. It's fantastic. And I think it will be pretty useful. So yeah, use Sarah's template as a good, it's a good, good
Just
way
for
to
the
kind of
ideas,
pull all
you
the-
know, because
yeah.
because I was thinking the same exact thing. It's like, well, it's Woods Hole, and then, you know, and then Mark Bain from, like, so anything that I'm going to do, I'll run past them, of course, you know, or.
Mhm.
But if you need
Just
that
working out with
blurb
them.
that goes out in the school newsletter,
Oh yeah.
there it is.
Yep.
You know, and then
Right.
you don't have to think about it every single time you get asked for it either, which is
Right.
also
Yeah.
like makes me crazy.
Right.
Appreciate that. Thank you so much.
You're so
Yeah. And I think the other thing with outreach resources is make sure, remind your research teams that they have their own networks. Again, like they all working for an organization, or they're part of a faculty, or they have some other, you know, Martin's case, he has a huge other network as well. Make sure that they understand that it's not just you taking on all of the outreach for their expedition. I mean, yes, you can give them the little postcards and all that stuff, but say, please make sure this is on your website. You know, make sure that you're getting it out on, and most universities also have PR people. And so they need to be, you know, have them talk to their PR people, have them do a press release about the expedition and that you're part of it and they're going out and those kinds of things. Because where Judy and I saw this most recently, it was John's expedition. They had this whole web page dedicated to that entire expedition. And it took us till the very end of the expedition before they finally linked up John's journals, you know. And so there was this, it was like two separate things were happening. And anyway, it was really sad because it was a missed opportunity to really broaden the outreach there, you know, because they had their whole website dedicated. In fact, the PI was doing his own Facebooking, he was doing Instagram tweeting, all this stuff. And then there was John, you know, and John's world. So what we want to see is more of a meshing of those outreach. So, you know, for Department of Defense or the Navy, you know, they should be somehow meshing with what Sarah's producing, and it shouldn't just be coming.
Yeah. At the same time, what I've learned about my group, they are going out so often, and it's like they're just out doing. They're the weather people, basically, you know, of the Arctic Ocean, and it's like not a huge deal that they go like 5 or 6 times a year, and it's like every year we go to these places, and so it doesn't feel like as big of a deal to any of them.
It's not
and
a
that they're
big deal.
teams.
Their team, yes, the researcher may, but the unique part is that you're part of the expedition. So that's what they have to sell to their network. Is it's like, yep, we're going out again, but this time we have Sarah who's going to help explain what we're doing. It's like you're suddenly bringing that communication to their science and
That's a good point.
and stuff. So it's you that's the unique part. So that's what you just got to convince them. And yeah, in your group, they are doing a lot of things, but they do have University of Washington has a huge PR thing, and they should be doing a press release that Ignatius is going out, and this time he's going out with it.
I will
educator
push
from
on,
Colorado
I will push
to
on
do
Polar.
X, Y,
I will, yeah,
stuff.
okay, I'll push on that program. I don't think the Navy is going to care.
Yeah, and they may not. So anyway, I mean, I'm just trying to show you that there's lots
That's
of ways
good.
to look
Okay.
at this outreach, and that it shouldn't be on you. You might have to remind the team that they have PR people and that they belong to alumni associations, and if outreach is a huge piece of their thing, they need to, that's why you have these discussions. It's like, hey, is there an alumni association? Are you faculty? Do you do a regular newsletter to your students or something at the university letter that might be interested in following us along? So that's just and also if there's grad students, that's another angle. Okay, so outreach resources. Related to outreach, I'm just going to remind you that when you start doing actual outreach activities, we are tracking those. So there's an outreach documentation form, it's online. And so if you start going to, Erin, for instance, maybe you get called into a class to talk about the upcoming expedition, or there's an outside group, you would want to document that, what day it was, if there was a title of the activity, how many people attended, because we do use those numbers. Also, we are trying to document where you're going, or and as you go through all of this, if you use social media at the end of your expedition, we're going to ask you, especially, like, I know, Sarah, you're probably more familiar with this, but there's usually an analytical side on the tweets and on the Facebook things. We'll want you to document just in one caption, like, I had X number of Facebook posts, or I had X number
over the last 2 years.
Yep, probably. Yep. We'll probably ask, we'll just ask a cumulative.
That's a huge ask. That'll take an entire day to go through, like, Instagram and Facebook and LinkedIn and Twitter. And
well, we could discuss it for you, but it would be about we'll have to see. We can maybe just do it over the course of your expedition time that you're in the field.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's huge. That's huge.
Well, because you're using it professionally, it's not a huge ask for a teacher that's only tweeting once in a while about their project. So you have to, we will have to probably figure out what's going to work for you. But for Kathy, it may be like she's only done 5 tweets about this entire thing and posted 3 times on Facebook, or whatever.
For those of us who don't do social media, it's going to be really easy.
Exactly. So and that's just it. So we just asking you to aggregate all of that into one thing, and for PolarTREC, sometimes it's over a time frame that we do things. So it could be just the time frame of your expedition while you're actually out in the field. How many people followed you along on that particular Facebook post or whatever. So but we will ask. So it's a good thing, Sarah, that you said it's a huge ask on your end, because you do have a company side to it as well, which might be,
it's like a school. I mean, just think of it as Erin's high school. I mean, it's the same. I don't know. I always just feel very not like anybody else in this program, and it's like sometimes it's very strange. It's like it's just another entity. It's not like.
So yeah, but keep that in mind that we'll want something. So we'll just have to figure out how to make it work. What was your outreach and what are the analytics behind it, especially if you are using social media. And we do the same on our end. We're collecting information through journals and our social media for each expedition. So you'll get that information as well, like what happened on our side, how many people followed you along and all that. Any other things about outreach?
Yeah, along those lines, it is so much more fun to write blogs and journals and things when you know who's receiving them. And I know, it's so much more fun because then it's so much, it's like teaching if you know your audience. And so I would love to see a list of who signed up to receive the blogs, but I reached out to Ronnie yesterday on Matters Most because he's having to fix all kinds of things on the back end of the journals, like the comments were shut off and all kinds of things. And he said that that's absolutely not possible. And that's just, I guess, maybe more feedback. It's it would be great to know who those 37 people were yesterday. Even if you just can, from a privacy issue, could delete the whatever.com, like delete that part and just show me the beginning of those emails, because most likely I know those people, and it just makes it so much more fun as opposed to
I
just
was one of
writing
those
into the
people.
ether.
I was one of those people.
I think my mom is one of
I'll
those
just
people,
say that.
but you know, it's just like writing into the ether. It's like, I don't know. It's really, it's hard to be motivated to do it, I guess is my point, without knowing who they are.
Yeah,
Well, you
I
could
get
think
that.
from like different angles, Sarah. Like think about like, you know, I mean, it's kind of like no different than what you're doing as an informal educator, you know, like, well, formal educator outside of, you know, the public school system, you know, like.
Right. I know
like,
how to do it. It's just, I know that there's a list, and I know that it's really easy to look at a list of emails and be like, oh, look, I was like, oh my gosh, I had no idea. It's just a motivator is what it is, to like know
Right.
who's out there that cares. Because there's a lot of imposter syndrome with this work. It's like, who cares? I'm going to the Arctic. Everybody else is living their life.
This is true.
And like, they're like, who cares? It's really not that, like, it's my
But I mean,
big
if you
deal.
think about the people, you know, think about the people that
So-
you want to reach the most, and it's the people that don't care. You know what I mean? Like, you know,
Yeah.
so I mean that's
Yeah.
really kind of like the angle and the hook that I take all of the time is that, geez, I wish that everybody cared about climate science, but they don't. So those are the people that I'm trying to like engage, you know. So like when it comes down to it, it would be great, you know, to have like a list and see like who's, you know, but at the end of the day, people that are likely on that list are awesome. I'm glad they're following me. I love that they're following me, but
Yeah.
I'm preaching to the choir on all of those individuals, right? You know,
Right.
so like,
Exactly.
I want the people that
But
don't.
there
and
might
so,
be some
like,
surprises on there. That's what I guess. I don't.
there
I
might
don't
be, but
understand
I
why
mean,
it has to be
maybe.
so top secret. I'm just like, I'm doing all this work for Arcus, for PolarTREC, to get all this webpage now, you know, whatever. And it's like, just so again, more feedback for the future of what is it that motivates people to want to do this stuff. I mean, we're hooked on who likes things on social media, right? We're hooked on this unbelievable. Our brains are wired to know who's paying attention. So anyway, put that in the notes for next time.
Yeah, and in the format of things always changes. I get that the subscription part and the current way that journals are handled is not ideal. But the one advantage you can do, or one thing you can do, is you can take that link and cross feed it to your social media where you do know everybody, and you can push it out there. So, I mean, the journals are there on this place, and they'll be archived, which actually does help you down the road. A lot of people use journals and feature further things. So it does help to have the journals archived. But comments and what feedback, most people in reality for the journals do that on social media. I mean, we have the data that shows it. Like if you cross post that journal to your, you know, Facebook page or to tweet it out, a bulk of your comments are going to come from those audiences, right? And so having multiple avenues to share that journal and that idea, it's totally fine. I mean, those are the kinds of things we try to capture when you come back. It's like, okay, Sarah, you know, put her journal out here on Twitter, and 100 people commented it over there, but you know, we got 2 comments over here. And we try to train people to come back to the website, but people are very, like you said, people's habits are, you know, they're set. So
I guess go ahead. I'm sorry.
Yeah, it's if we just had the journals just in a regular blog way or posted on just through social media, the disadvantage of that is really about the archiving and future use of those journals.
I just as a colleague, as a professional in this work with all of you, it would, like I said, just to see that list of humans, because I care. It makes such a difference to like have, you know, who the humans are, because if I'm not, I could care less about the ether. I care about the people. So
yeah, my guess is the reason that you don't, and I'll clarify for Ronnie just so I know, but my guess is when you subscribe, it's like any list, there's lots of rules about identity. It's just like our, you know, we have an education list or Arctic info. You can't look at the subscription list. So when we get that information, you're just a number, so you wouldn't know who it was anyway. and it's just about privacy laws and how data is collected. But I get that. But you should remind yourself that you are writing for somebody. You have to think about who it is. It may be just your mother. It may be that one person down the street that doesn't understand you at all and always wondered what you were up to. And you can share those. And you can share those journals however you need to, if you think it needs to go out to a broader audience. And I totally encourage you, again, to leverage your networks as well as your researchers' networks to cross-post as many places as possible. That's how you'll get it out there. And the journals are archived, and so they're also available for the future as well for other things. Okay, so we got about another hour, so I want to cover, I know this came up as an item, was professional goals and balance. Was there a particular, I mean, we had the template where you talk about your professional goals. Was there a particular item that you were all looking for when you checked that off as something of interest? Or is it more about balance while you're in the field? Maybe that the word balance kind of threw you off. That's a good joke, Janet. Anyway, I don't know. Is there something in that category or area that you're looking for?
Let's see.
I do know that I'm because I don't want my journals to just be a photo and like 2 sentences. I am pre-writing journals because
Good strategy.
these expeditions are so short. And I don't want to spend my entire time in Alaska in front of my computer. That's not why I'm going to Alaska. And so I'm trying to get ahead of the game. I only have 2 ready, and then I can front load it with the beginning of the journal with like photos or whatever happened today that relates to that content. That's my plan. So I think that's going to help with balance, but it's also making me crazy right now.
I think some people, though, when they're out in the field, as much as, you're going to be out in the field a lot, and you're going to be excited about what you're doing and what you're learning, that stuff will flow also very easily in the evening when you're at dinner and, you're done and maybe wrapping up, and before you go to bed, you may be throwing, a paragraph together with a couple of pictures. It'll be much quicker than you think. And instead of trying to go crazy now, I mean, it's great to get some ready when you go, and like you said, you don't want to be in front of your computer all the time, but I think you'll find a balance there where, I mean, it is exciting when you're out there and you're like, I got to write some of this down, because it's pretty cool.
Absolutely.
So, so be excited about that when you get out there.
Yeah, that's a great strategy though, Sarah, is to try to, and I would say that carries over into also like the Polar Connect events or any other outreach activities you're doing. If you could kind of put some of, like you've already done your little postcards and your media stuff for the radio and advertising. I mean, all of those things, if you gather photos or if you have videos of things that you want to, you're going to include in your journal, any of that stuff, or resources.
Also so
everything.
much easier. I mean, I've got a 17-inch screen sitting right here and my laptop's here, and then the tiny little PolarTREC computers here. And it's wonderful to have it, but it's so nice to be able to work off a big screen, right? Especially when we're working with satellite imagery or maps or all the different things that we're interacting with. So that's also part of the strategy. Is like, oh my gosh, I got to get as much done before I don't have my big computer. It's just logistic. That's just practice. And I'm sharing this because maybe it's helpful with Kathy and Erin. I don't know.
No, it's good. And also access to the other piece that can make it a little more complicated is bandwidth and access to the internet while you're in the field, and who you're, just all of that. Like Erin, it sounds like, you'll probably have good bandwidth and there's internet in town, but it may come and go, that kind of thing, or you're sharing it with a team, or there may be some constraints on how much data you can use in a particular location at one time. So all of those kinds of things, the more homework you can do before you actually get to the field, or is definitely will help you in the long run. And you're all going during the summertime, the land of the midnight sun. And believe me, you'll be like, crazy. You'll think you have endless hours to do everything, and you're going to be exhausted. And so at the same time, so it'll help you. You'll be like, what was I posting? What was I doing at 3 a.m. in the morning? Yeah. So yeah, balance. This will probably be more for Erin and Sarah at the moment, since Kathy might not be going out to the field for a whole nother year, so we can discuss this at some point. But that whole balance thing is, and Sarah, you brought it up about, I think you need to, if you're getting behind in something, whether it's related to something you promised to do for the team, or it's, trying to post a journal or whatnot, or you're just feeling really tired and you need to do something else besides research or post, you need to have conversations with your research team about that as well. Just remind them that you may need an hour. You don't need to go on every adventure. Most everybody can't say no, so I totally expect you guys to say yes to everything, but do realize you have the option of saying no. And you can remind your team that too, especially longer expeditions. Sarah, I don't anticipate that being on yours because it is so compact, but if you're on a longer expedition or you have more time, it's okay sometimes not to go and just spend the day staying, maybe at camp and seeing what the town's about, or again, you're a part of communities. So yes, there's research. Yes, there's PolarTREC, but you should also take advantage of learning what that community is about and what it looks like, and experiencing that aspect as well. So make sure you, again, that balance, tell your team, because they may have been there to that community. Like Sarah's team has been to that community many, many times. So they're going to blow through things that you have never seen in your life. They're going to be like, yeah, whatever,
No, we're going to go to the museum. We've already got that on the schedule.
But I'm not even talking about the museum. I'm like talking about like walking around, like you want to go,
right.
You want to go see the garbage dump, or maybe you want to go walk from store to store, because walking from this part of town to this part of town can be a very eye-opening and interesting experience yourself. Totally. And you may meet people, right? They have done that. Sense. They've done those things. They've seen those things. Most of them have. And so it's that they're like, I've already been to that store 1 billion times, or whatever. And you're going to be like, because it's your one time. So make sure you request it. So if it's important for you to go birding, if it's important for you to go walking, if it's important for you to go to check out the school or go meet somebody or whatever it is, make sure.
Or heaven forbid, actually take a nap or something like that.
Yeah, I'm not anticipating anybody taking a nap, but yeah. And make time for yourself, so.
And don't get eaten by a polar bear while doing so.
Right. Now that is one thing all of you will have to be very aware in your locations, even the summertime, is being aware of polar bears and just asking about dangers and where you can and cannot go by yourself and things like that. So they should be giving you safety briefings about that, but in each of the communities, because polar bears are very real in every one of your communities that you'll be going to. And they do like to stalk. Anyway, but that's about balance. You just need to find the time. And it also related to that is family and home and others back wherever your home base is, that may be wanting to hear from you and things like that, making sure you know how to communicate to them, or setting up times like I need to call, or I know most people will email and everything, but if you need to use a satellite phone, which probably nobody here will have to use a satellite phone, but to call back home, those things are all very valid. Do not feel like you cannot ask your team to take the time out to do those things, because the time differences, maybe you have to do it in the middle of the day at lunchtime and say, I need to go back, because I want to call home and do whatever it is, or check in with somebody. They will understand that. Just make sure that they know that it's your need. Okay. technology from the field, that jumped a little bit into situation. I know, Kathy, this probably won't pertain to you again right this time, so you can ignore it if you need to. But Erin and Sarah, you should be very comfortable here with posting journals, since you have good bandwidth in your communities. We anticipate what this means in our world is that Janet and Judy don't have to get emails with your journals and post them on your behalf. We anticipate that you're going to have access to the internets and you can do your own posting. If for some reason something changes, let us know. Just drop us a quick email and say, it looks like we aren't going to have the bandwidth we thought, or whatever it is. And then you would start following email journaling and all those other things. But for you, in your particular instance, I wouldn't worry about that. I wouldn't even bother to practice it too much. I would you just know that there's other ways to communicate and to send journals if you need them, especially if the internet is not working the way you thought. Questions about technology from the field? Just practice.
Practice. Yeah. So I actually took apart my educator journal just this afternoon and made like a note. I got an old used folder and put PolarTREC stickers on it. And but this is my journal cheat sheet papers, and which is helpful. But that's what I'm a little bit totally not confident on is all the stuff to do with photos, because I don't know how I've not used any photos. But like I feel like there was a lot of emphasis on photos during our original training, and
you wonder why. I'll tell you why. I'll tell you how also. Yes, the reason why is because this, out of everything you've already worried about, photo management is probably going to be your worst nightmare. Although Erin may have hands on, she may already have a step on this one, or heads up on this, because she deals with photos professionally. So photo management is definitely, if there was one aspect of this program where most people don't even probably get a C for grade, it would be photo management. And everybody leaves it to the last possible minute. And as Judy's shaking her head, do not do that, don't do that. I would read the documentation, but in summary, every time you take a photo or at the end of every day, you should be making sure that you're having your original photos in one folder, whether, like in your case, it's going to be on that portable hard drive. You got originals, and you're just dumping originals in there, and do not touch them, leave them. Don't rename them. Don't do anything. They just stay that way. They go into
maybe a folder per day or something. So like just so that it's like a somewhat organized. Yes. Okay.
Yes, you can do it that way. And then, day one, day two, it's fine. Whatever you want to call those folders that works in Brain is fine. The important part is that the originals are the best quality, they stay. Okay. And that's the other thing, is make sure when you're using iPhones in particular, we've had a lot of people taking pictures with iPhones, totally fine. Mm-hmm. Make sure though, your iPhone photos, if they're going to be the only photo that we get, that you're giving us the highest resolution possible. So it's going to take up more memory on your phone. Because we use those photos for everyththing. Yes. So
would you rather have like raw imagery coming your way?
You want,
like them in raw format?
I will ask Joed.
I think it's highest resolution is what
I think it. Yeah, she's thinking though raw though from your camera, like I have raw also. Yeah. I don't know. We will ask him. It might be better to have highest, because I'm assuming your camera might be like mine, where you can convert it on the fly, or at some point convert everything to high JPEGs, high res JPEGs. I don't know that they have to be raw. Maybe Judy, will you ask Joed if he's around?
Yeah. I mean, the cameras that PolarTREC sent us don't take raw photos, I don't think.
No, but but your professional camera
does. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So but the idea, even if you convert them all, Aaron, it would just be the highest resolution JPEG as we can possibly
That
do.
sounds good. And you want to know what, John, because I was actually, when he got back, I was emailing back and forth with him a little bit one day. And that was his first warning. He was like, the photos. He was like, do not, I repeat, do not leave it till the end. That was his biggest.
Exactly. And so there's an
Love it.
Excel spreadsheet that I would encourage you to print out actually, or have on your computer, very handy, whatever way works best for you, to have that kind of sitting. I think, I can't remember where it is in your world anymore, but there's the Excel spreadsheet that's
Yeah,
the
it's
photo
right on our
documentation.
desktop.
Okay, it's on your desktop.
Yep.
So, at the end of every day, just make sure you're sticking the photos in there that you are
Okay.
using. Now, you just need to document the photos that you used in your journals. And they're only your photos. So if you borrowed somebody else's photo, like a map or something from the internet or anything, that doesn't go in that documentation. You just need to make sure it's credited right in your journal, but you don't have to document it because we obviously aren't in charge of that photo or we don't own it or anything. So, and media, videos, same thing. If they're your videos, document that as well. And if you do that on a daily basis, kind of go along as you're doing your journals, then you'll be caught up when you come back from the field. And there might be just some minor things. In addition to your journal photos being documented, Joette and Judy and Janet will ask you if you have additional photos that you think you want to share with us that weren't in the journal, but are really nice images that you think would add to our image library. You're up to 200, I think is what we put for people. You're welcome to give those to us, but we'll ask you to fill out the rest of the sheet, for those 50 or 25 or whatever images. So, but at minimum, you need to document the journal ones and then up to 200 after that. And then you just keep, you keep your high res photo folder. Well, this is the balancing of the journal not being all photos, kind of thing too. So that will probably catch you.
And so, okay, so we submit just like up to 200, like another bucket of really high quality images that could be useful for the future for ARCIS. Okay, gotcha.
And it's really up to you as to what you think that is. We don't have and we use images all the time. And I don't know if you've been to
they look really good too.
If you've been to the media archive for ARCIS, maybe Judy, you can plug that into the chat. But most of the images that get used by NSF and us for commercial are from teachers. They're all from educators in our program. They show up everywhere. I'm always impressed. And NSF in particular, like all their website stuff, it's tons of PolarTREC educators.
So we spent also a lot of time talking about making videos and have all these tools for doing so. If we don't really care about making videos because it's not like, is there an expectation that we make videos?
No, but videos for your own purposes, I mean, maybe you don't put them in the journal, but maybe there's a video, you might think about taking videos, and I would probably do it with my phone, frankly, for like tools, things that you think you might use it down the road. Like if you wanted to show how they deploy a buoy or something.
We augured the sea ice.
Yeah. Right. You may want a video that's very specific of that activity or and so because it can help you explain something down the road. I think scientific processes and use of tools are always good. Those make good videos and I know educators use them in the future for all sorts of things.
So somewhere in the back of my mind, oh, hi, Jen. I have this memory of like, if you take a picture, it belongs to ARCIS because it belongs to NSF because you are there on NSF time and everything you do is not yours.
That is correct.
So then how in the world am I ever going to use these things if they're not mine and they're not documented?
No, not, don't worry about documented, just worry about crediting. So basically, it is true. This is true for any activity. It's not just NSF. If you're on any federally funded activity,
Yeah.
Unless you have a specific written agreement, like commercial people do have written agreements with the funding agency. If you were on it, they own the rights to the image. Basically, in our case, it just means that as much as Erin loves to take beautiful photos, she couldn't probably sell them without getting NSF permission to sell them. Now, if she was making them into an art exhibit to go to a museum, you probably ask permission to let NSF know I'm doing this whole thing about the Arctic. I'm doing it at this museum. I will give credit that this project was funded by the National Science Foundation, blah, blah, blah. Yeah, so they're kind of loosey-goosey rules. It's just basically they don't want people making money from things that they funded. It goes beyond photos. It also goes into book writing articles for like where you get paid, those kinds of things. Any activity, really. Speaker, you were invited to speak someplace and they were going to pay you, about your experience. It would be about this particular. What did Sarah do? And we're paying Sarah to be the speaker at this event. You would just want to clear it. In some cases, they will actually let you collect the money. Sometimes they don't. It just depends. But we would just run it through their communications department to make sure. Sometimes the images that you guys take pictures of end up in textbooks, and again, it all goes through NSF whether they'll allow for that image to be in the textbook or video to be in the textbook or not, or teaching material. It just depends. So, but will you use them, and can you use them in your own educational purposes? Yes, that's fine. Yeah, to tell your story about your experience, fine. You're just going to credit, say, this opportunity was funded by the National Science Foundation, administered by ARCUS, or whatever the words are, or whatever you need to say in your presentation.
Thanks. That's helpful.
Yeah, and if you're at any point, we get lots of requests for things. So if at any point somebody asks for something you aren't sure, you just have to ask us, and we'll figure it out for you. And we're pretty good at deciphering what works and what doesn't. Jen, how are you?
Good. Sorry I'm late. I have a small child and I had animal chores and just sort of the night.
It's okay. We're glad you're able to join us for a little bit. And we did record this, so yes. You can always play that. That'll be fun. Okay. Any other things about images, movies, technology from the field? Okay. Another topic that came up was, we'll get to PolarTREC events here in a sec, but it was the evaluation. This is simple. We have an evaluator. They're going to send out an evaluation. Usually it's a link to a SurveyMonkey form, and you get to fill out that form. If it's designed, if you're in a classroom and it's something that you have to give to students, they'll let you know about it and how to handle all that. At this point in time, I don't anticipate anything. Well, there might be something this spring, a network strategy, but I wouldn't anticipate any evaluation tools until fall or the end of the summer. They usually follow an academic cycle, so they usually try to do something in the fall, but with COVID, it's all out of whack, as you can imagine. So anyway, the evaluator will send a note. They've got everybody's emails, and they usually send it out to each person and say, can you please do this and that. One thing everybody will do at some point, again, I don't think it will happen for at least, it might not even happen until 2023, is I And you might not even remember this, but you took a test. Does anybody remember you took a test?
And we also made a
Well-
list of like everybody we knew.
Yes. Yeah, that's the network one. So the network one, that might come out this spring. I'll ask Jen about it, but definitely at the very end of the grant cycle, and if we extend it so that Kathy can go out in 2023, it might not happen till spring of 2024.
By then Aaron and Jen and I and Kathy, we will all have gone on like 7 expeditions, and we'll be like,
You
we
get-
don't even remember.
You'll get the test anyway. And
will have been forgotten. So it's like,
It'll be more like a refresher of like, oh yeah, we were supposed to learn that.
yeah, anyway, so we'll see what the evaluator, and they may decide not to do it because it may be too long between things, and that may be, not worth their time and data to do any analysis on. So we'll see. But we'll keep you updated on all of those things. So don't worry about the evaluation piece at this point. Polar Connect events. Okay. It's a big, one, it's a requirement that you try to join one before you go out in the field, and the only reason is just so you know what they look like. And of course, there hasn't been very many.
But there's going to be one on April 5th at 9 a.m. Mountain Time. And you can join.
You can join, and you can check it off as your program requirement. So, Sarah, do you want to tell us about that process? How's it gone for setting up a Polar Connect event?
Well, I think it's pretty straightforward and actually quite easy. So we're actually gonna try to do it outside if we can get our batteries in our I'll show you what I have acquired. I have the good old tripod-y thing, but I also have this is the part that's kind of fun, is I got the microphone that goes on the phone that somehow is going to go on here, and all of it connects and it's not going to blow away, and we've got external batteries. We're going to try to do it outside because I want it to be as real as possible, of like live stream from the Arctic. We're gonna have to do it in town because that's where there's internet, but I want people to see ice behind us. And so I'm going to put together some slides from the slide template that you have provided us and make it very simple. Basically, here's who we are and what we're doing. And then I'm going to introduce all my people, all right, whoever wants to play from my team, and let them say about like what's their contribution to the team or what's their role. And I'm going to be using probably a few of the online teaching tools that we have acquired in the last few years of getting people to be engaged in it. And and then we'll be done. And it's going to go by really fast because an hour is like so fast on these online, if you have all these people and all those pieces. But I also have been making sure that people know about it, and not just my Wild Rose education world, but like my mom wants to like host people at the public library in Missouri that day and like have a watch party because she's on the library board. And I'm like, what a great idea. And so it's much more than even my teacher friends and teacher colleagues classrooms. It's like, and I've actually written that down, like host a watch party. Like I'm spoon feeding this stuff to people. So anyway, I think that's my plan. It may all fall apart and we may just have to do it inside, and it might not be all those things, but who cares? It'll be fine.
It will be.
It'll all be good. Yeah. Yeah. I'm encouraged by your little fluffy microphone thing there. Because the one thing I will say about doing it outside, and you are not the first person who has wanted to do outside and have ice in the background and all that, is wind. And not so much knocking things over, but if we can't hear you because there's wind, then it doesn't work.
And so we might just need to do a little practice. Like we might just I might say, hey, when's a good time on sometime just to do a 5-minute Zoom call? Just to be like, does this work? Because that could be really
the day of we'll be on early, and then you can.
But if we have to switch locations, that's really challenging. So maybe I don't know. Maybe I'll get my sister to be our test. I mean, I'll test it with somebody before.
No, I mean, we can test before, but the win situation will only be valid on the day that you're actually going to give the event, right?
Yeah. So I was thinking of being next to a building where there's maybe some shelter as well, but who knows?
I have found if you're using like an appropriate headset with a good microphone, it will do a lot of that canceling. So that may help if you're testing that.
Okay.
But if you've got multiple people that you're handing the microphone over to,
It won't work.
Yeah, that wouldn't work. But it's just something to think about. And it's not a, people have definitely had outside events and they've been awesome, but it is something to think about for sure.
Yeah, I just think that in 2022, we are so overcooked on the online lecture and webinar that I think we as educators have a responsibility to do it better. And I have an expectation of myself that if it's not engaging, it's kind of worthless. Like, why bother? So that's where I come from. And so we'll do our best, and we'll, I don't know, have some silly humor in it as well. Maybe some ridiculous glasses will be part of it. I don't know.
They can be. So you brought up, the reason why I want to do the share is because you brought up every piece of information that's in that boring document and on the slideshow that we put together about Polar Connect events. So the first piece is that you got to kind of prepare for them, do some pre-planning, pull together those any images or slides that you're going to share. We do have some basic slides that we need you to put together because we do record them. We like to have the title, and so it's for archival purposes, and so people know where and what to expect, where the event is at and what to expect while they're in the event. And then after that, the middle piece is really all about you. And there is a balance, as you said, an hour goes by pretty quick, but there is a balance of how many people you want to interact with your virtual audience too. So some teams have a lot of people, and it's good if they all wave, but not necessarily does everybody have to talk. So we want to hear why you're there, what you're learning, what's it like to be there, and also have time for people just to ask questions. I think the hardest part about the Polar Connect events are kind of what we went over with journals, is about they're designed to be pretty open, and open can be everybody from your grandma coming to the event to school-age kids to researchers that have been there and want to ask science questions. So we try to, I think, make your events for who you think your primary audience is going to be, and the rest will just follow along. So like in Erin and Jen's case, maybe it's, a certain group of students. That this could be an assignment. This could be just a particular group that you want to connect with. And we'll open it up to everybody, but that's who you tailor this event for. So that at least helps you maybe figure out what you want to say and how you want to pull it togetger.
And question, just because I have not been, I haven't seen one of the Polar Connect events. Do the kids get seen by other people?
No, they don't have to. They could turn off their video just like you can. So
it's just a Zoom call.
We do it actually through Zoom, not this channel, but we have a special Zoom room that we use them for. Yep. Okay. So it's just like this, and we screen share. So Judy or I will screen share your slides, or you can too if you want to. Sometimes it's too much because of internet, but those are the things we'll discuss, who's sharing beforehand. And yeah, so people can be on or not.
Okay, perfect. Yeah, because my kids can be seen or heard.
Right. So. And so in those cases, they could, can they chat? Can they ask their questions through chat? So that's the instructions. We would say that. If they want to call in, we also have phone numbers, so people don't even have to do Zoom. Although, then we need to know, because then we send a PDF of the images to them. So if they aren't going to be on.
It'll be fine. We've done it before where it's just the teacher who's seen, and the teacher basically reads everything. So
that works also. Yeah. I was going to say, if there's the other thing is you don't have to do just one Polar Connect event. If it time allows, or if you want to do is meet with your own students and do your own thing at some point, you're welcome to do that as well. If you need to use our Zoom room or Zoom channel, we'll let you do that as well. So like, for instance, when John was on the ship, he of course didn't have internet. He used a phone and he called into his classroom and did his own thing with his own students that way. So there's just lots of options. So if there's a special group, some people have like a senior center or an elders hostel group, or somebody in the past did a garden group, and they just wanted to have that one-to-one interaction. We just kind of helped them set it up, and they did their own thing. We can do it that way, or but we do want you to have one that's very public where anyone can join as well. So that's what we're looking for.
So my same question in different context is, can you share with us the list of who has signed up so that I know either to like
Yes.
bother these people and be like, get signed up or not? Yes.
You'll get a PDF or a Excel spreadsheet of everyone who's pre-registered before your event. So if you want to see that earlier than right before your event, then you'll let me know.
Please put that on your list. I'm letting you know, because people are so last minute, and they just are like, they won't sign up until you badger them 4 times, right? And then once I know who's on that list, I'll be like, oh, and then I can do a call out to like, oh, that 3rd grade class in Minneapolis that reached out to me totally randomly. I can be like, you're here, or whoever. That would, again, I'm really motivated by my audience because it matters. And so
you'll have to let me know when you want it though, right?
Can you just put it on your to-do list? Because it's like I leave in 10 days.
For when? Do you want it a week before your event? Do you
Can
want
I ask you
before your event?
No, like maybe
Just
like
ask me when you want it.
Maybe that Friday, maybe April 1st. That would be great.
Okay.
That would be super helpful, because then that gives me 3 days to, that's another piece of feedback. Ignatius, my researcher, wanted it. He's like, oh, we could do this on the first day we're up in Barrow, or I'm sorry, up in Newtiagwick. And I was like, no, because I don't even know what I would talk about. we gotta have some stories. And so we moved it to the second, but he was like, oh, right, that makes sense. But he was just building a schedule, and it was just kind of like, oh, we'll do it on their first or second day we're there. And I offer that as to the rest of the teachers here, that's something to consider.
Yes, definitely how to schedule. So that's part of that outreach and communications with your research team. Remind them that this, ideally you want to have a Polar Connect event while you're in the field. It's part of your requirements. It helps really share the science to broader audiences. And even during the summer, some of you are in the middle of the summer, that might, everybody's like, oh, this is so challenging, but we've had good success. It's not like tons of people, but there's always somebody that can join, or you might have to focus in on special groups like camps or after school programs or Girl Scouts or things like that might help bring the audience to your event. But talking about when it happens with your research team and making sure it works with the team is an ongoing conversation, because sometimes there are, and this has happened sometimes in best plans, we've had to set a date, we've advertised, we have people coming, but something happens, like the team can't be there, or communications all fall, and we have canceled them and rescheduled. So don't worry about that. We'll handle that as it comes. The part I wanted to mention, because you guys, Judy and Sarah, were talking about it, we will set up on the ARCA side, we will set up the mechanism for people to register. We'll help you, we'll share those links to you and, post it on our website and our social media. But again, we'll share that information with you and hope that you, continue promoting your event. And then at the end of the event, we will give you who showed up, how many registered, all that kind of information. We share that to you and the team so they know what the outreach was. And then also we share an archive link so that people can get to it. Yeah, so Polar Connect events, we want definitely everybody to do one if you can. Sometimes, again, like in John's instance, it wasn't possible, obviously, because of communications, but you know, we try to do those as much as possible. And it is through Zoom, just different channel. And the one other thing, Sarah, you mentioned practicing. We are more than willing to be around to practice beforehand. So if you need to check out your technology, we'll do that with you as well and set it up. So that's not an issue. And we've done them all different ways. Some satellite phones, cell phones, Skype, Zoom. They've happened all
About
different kinds of ways.
TikTok and I'm just kidding.
Liza was the TikTok. So if anybody wants to connect on House, I mean, it's people do use TikTok. So if you have questions about TikTok and its effectiveness, check in with Liza on that. She actually was very creative with TikTok and did a good job with TikTok. Now, one thing with Polar Connect events, we probably won't do, we've done it in the past, but I don't know, I have to think about it, is there is to share on Facebook and other things, you know, you can cross share the Zoom things. The problem with is we lose the ability to track who joined. It gets very cumbersome that way. So if we have more than just Judy and Janet, like if there's a team member or somebody that's back home and can track that, we could do Facebook Live, but it's hard to manage because questions get posted over there and you have to have somebody that's watching those other feeds and tracking who joined and who didn't join. So it's not impossible. I won't say it's impossible. It just takes another person usually to do that. So if that is something and you're like, my audience only is on Facebook because it's all of my mother's friends that are joining us, you know, we'll do it, but let's discuss it. Same with TikTok. If that's where we have to be, we'll figure out a way, but it won't last an hour on TikTok, I don't think, though.
Oh, did everyone see Liza's? Did anyone see Liza's TikTok? Oh, yeah, I'll see if I can find them. One of them is really cool. It's just on the equipment that or the cold weather gear that she got.
So, any questions about Polar Connect events? And then we have one last little piece, which is about social media and media. Well, she's finding it. Okay, so we've already kind of gone over media and social media strategies. I don't know if there's any other questions you have about that. Like any outreach that I mentioned earlier, just try to keep track of where you're doing things and because in particular researchers want to know where their stuff was being shared and how many people they love that for their reports, as do we, how many people were watching that video. And, you know, we can keep track of things that are on our end, but the further out you go, the more places you post in your land. If you have ways to get that information, we'd appreciate it. But you can use social media, like we said, there's no limits on our end. Like if you want to cross post to TikTok or whatever, that's fine. There's no rules there. Okay. That was all the pieces of what we had listed as like the the items that you wanted to hear about. Do you have any particulars, questions, or do you need practice on something and you want to spend time with us doing that? We're here. It's open.
So
was it as overwhelming as you thought it was? You're like, oh, that's right. I remember that that week now.
So I already did this, but now I'm wondering like there's still time to like influence it. So thinking about press beyond social media, like the real press or the guy that called me from the university about yesterday, he wants me to be the spotlight of the alumni magazine or something.
Good.
He's trying to figure it all out, whatever he wants to do with this. But I just
what to say?
What's that?
I said, are you wondering what to say?
Oh, I
or
already
what
said it all. No, I mean, that's not, I mean, there's not
Okay.
like, because this is NSF and Arcus and University of Washington and the Navy and me, and I mean, I just did it, but is there a different protocol or is that just fine?
No, I mean, there is a media tip sheet and in the educator, and I can't look and I'm
No, it's okay.
in the educator's manual, there is a media tip sheet about things. So one thing, when you talk to press, and I don't know how you handled it, Sarah, I know you've had some experience with this already anyway, is if they call you and they say they want to do an interview, don't do it right then, right there. That's my first. Say, great, I'm really excited to talk to you. What's your name? What's your number? And I will call you back in, maybe find out their deadline. Is your deadline in the next 10 minutes? Because that's not going to happen. Or is it the end of the day or whatever? But you say, I will call you back at time. Okay. And then you call them back. The media tip sheet is pretty good on how to, what you need to remember to say when you talk to media, like who you are, and it's, the organization, who you need to acknowledge and all those things, and whether they keep any of that or not in their interview, whatever. At least you'll be kind of organized in your thoughts and remember all the important things to say, like what the name of the researcher is, where the university they're at. And it's just like any other interview. If you don't know, you say, I don't know, talk to so-and-so. If they are asking you questions about things you have no idea, don't, just say
But
it.
there's no like, so there's no like protocol for, because NSF and all the layers of all these agencies, it sounds like it's carry on
as
with
far as like
good.
you should always recognize, I mean, that's what the media tip sheet's about. You should always try to get in there to recognize that this is an NSF funded program.
Right.
Blah,
Just
blah,
don't
blah,
listen
blah,
very
blah.
closely to the radio interview I did last week, because I went on and on about John at this place and Cy at this place. And then I was like, there's this meteorologist who's the director at the University of Washington. And I never said Ignatius Rigger.
Right, exactly. And so the media
because I
tip
was
sheet
just
will do that. It's lists all the people,
I know,
so
but it's when you're in it, you're just human and you just make mistakes.
well, one thing you can do is you can write all that stuff out beforehand, and so the next time media does come, you have your researchers and their university, and you have the right name and all that kind of stuff. So it is important to write that out. And then the other piece you can do, and it's okay to ask, that sometimes it'll be granted and sometimes it won't, is can you look at the script or the interview piece before it gets aired? Or published, depending on what it is. You can ask the journalist for that. And sometimes they will grant you and allow you to review the content before and correct things like that before it gets published. So or aired. And one thing we do ask, so if that was a radio interview, ask them if you can get a link, follow up with an email or something. Can I get a link to that interview? So, and that can be added as a resource.
Yeah.
So
Done.
sometimes it takes, a while. They won't allow it for a couple
Because
of
of
weeks.
Judy's help, it was done.
And definitely let us know that you've done something like that. And then we'll remind you to, some of these things, like, can you get a link or whatever, and share it with us. And then because once it's published as a resource, then we can share it with the research team. And it also shows up on your profile or the expedition page. It shows up as an activity or something about the expedition. Any other thoughts, questions? No? All right. So Jen, we will be setting up a pre-field call with you in the upcoming weeks. Very exciting.
I am actually texting with Jenny right now. I was like, I'm on a call. What are you up to? She's getting ready to go. She just hired her other field person, I think. So
Good.
it's looking good. Yeah. I know it was a little nerve-wracking with the Canada Alaska piece, but
Right. Yeah. So the news is that Canada is open now. Is that going to change anything, you think?
she hasn't said that, but I think that, like me, she often flies by the seat of her pants. So if she was like, we're going to the Yukon, I would say, okay, we're going to the Yukon. So I'm not really flustered by it. I have the month of July pretty much set aside and whenever in August. So whatever happens is good with me. So
Okay,
Definitely.
great. Well,
Yeah.
if you hear something and maybe we don't know, or you could just let us know.
I will let you know if something big changes for sure.
We'll be in touch with her, but just in case.
Yes, seems to be our way of late, flying by the seat of our pants. All right. Well, I'm sure there's things that will come up, so you know how to reach out to us. I will remind you, if you haven't been on Matters Most, I know Sarah has in particular, but Matters Most channel is a good way to get to us very quickly. You don't have to wait for email. It's got a mobile version. It can be used on desktop, all sorts of different ways that it's accessible. But if you're looking for like, how do I do this right now? There's usually somebody around on the PolarTREC channel that will respond. Zeb works at nights, just so you know, Alaska nights. So he's usually around. Ronnie is, of course, on Pacific Coast, and Judy's on the East Coast. And so there's just, your chances of finding us are pretty good. And it also goes to our email. So if you post something there, if we didn't see it on there, we will get it by email as well. Just a heads up of how that works. But yeah, so that's a good way. Of course, phone and email also work.
And what's the expectation of reaching out and checking in while in the field when communication is pretty solid?
For reaching out to us, we probably won't hear from you unless, you know, there's something like we're setting up your Polar Connect event.
Okay,
or
sweet. I just didn't know what the expectation
or if we
was.
haven't seen you journaling, we'll be like, hey,
Are you alive?
Yes, that kind of thing. Or we see comments and you haven't responded to them, we'll be like, hey, remember, check your comments or something like that. But
And usually we
yeah.
do a midfield check-in, but
We
yours
do
is going to be pretty quick. So
yeah, I don't know how we'll do with your midfield check-in, but Judy's mentioning that because we do a midfield check-in with the longer expeditions, both with you and your researcher, two separate things. We see how they're, because that's way, hopefully we don't have any surprises at the end when we do a post-field call. So, but it is a check-in to make sure that everybody's doing okay and everything. Hi.
Cedar would like to wave to you guys if that's okay.
Totally. Yeah, it's getting
Hi,
kind of
Cedar.
late
Now
there.
it's bedtime.
I
Yes,
know.
yeah.
Good night, sweetie. All right. Well, I will let you all go and reach out if you need to get hold of us. And it was awesome seeing you all.